Hello, and welcome to another episode of the S.H.E podcast. Be seen, be heard, be empowered. And I have an incredible guest joining me today. Her name is Stephanie Miller, and I can't wait to introduce you to her. But before I do that, we're going to say hi. Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Hi, Heidi. I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm fabulous, and I'm really excited to be chatting with you today. So I just want to take a minute and say thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm going to be sharing that you have 3 little kiddos. So you are a busy, busy mom and an entrepreneur. So I really appreciate the time that you're sharing with us today.
Absolutely. Yeah. From my understanding, it really is about not what you are finding time for, but making time for. And you see the entrepreneurship, you see the sharing as a priority, especially it can encourage someone else to take those next steps as well. So I am so delighted to be here.
I love that, and I'm excited to chat with you. I have some questions around mompreneurship for you because you are doing all the things. Before we dive into that, Stephanie, I want to let everybody know. I'll give them a little background about you. So, Stephanie Miller is a multi-talented author, speaker, and certified spiritual growth coach and writing coach with a heart for inspiring Christian women to reach their full potential. She regularly teaches workshops, speaks at virtual events, and has been featured on over 50 podcasts. Woo! And we're one of them. I'm so excited.
Yeah, exactly. And counting.
And counting. Previous published works include The Butterfly Blueprint, Lucid Books 2020. Through her coaching, she has helped many aspiring writers overcome their fears and develop their craft while also growing in their faith. She enjoys indulging her creative side with painting and staying active with Pilates. Stephanie, her husband, and their 3 children call the Peach State home, along with their 2 mini goldendoodles. Oh, I have 2 dogs too. I love that you're a dog lover.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. They're brother and sister. They keep each other company. It's great.
Aw, so cute. And I'm sure how old are your kids?
So I have a 5-year-old girl, a 4-year-old boy, and a 1-year-old girl. So we have a busy, busy, busy household, but our hearts and our hands are so full.
You do have a busy, busy household. So Stephanie, I want to ask you a question because I love with this podcast, I'm really enjoying talking to female entrepreneurs who are doing all the things. And you are the epitome of one of them, juggling 3 kids, a husband, 2 golden doodles, a home, and a business, a successful business that you're doing. And you've been an author, and you're a speaker. So you are busy, a busy woman. Is this something that going into coaching, is this something that you did based on a transformation that you've gone through yourself? Or is this something that you had expertise on and helped others?
So kind of a combination of both. I have a super big smile on today, but I have not always been this smiley, happy, cheery self. When I was newly married, we moved away from family and friends. I left my job, my full-time job in office, and I just had this whole big identity crisis and this huge bout of just depression and this idea of who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore. And it really was from that low point of I'm no longer, I'm no longer that teacher at that school, and I'm no longer this person. And what does it mean to be a wife? And just shaping that identity and trying to understand who I am and figure it out. I really had this faith journey from a faith crisis, almost like this breakdown. I experienced this huge breakthrough. My coaching ministry is called Butterfly Beginnings Coaching, because I fully believe that we are called to live transformed as a beautiful butterfly. And that means having that renewed mind, having that understanding of who we are and who we are not, and not allowing our mindset specifically to drift back into those false beliefs and those false things that we think and we feel about ourselves. So it really was from that own personal transformation that I became a spiritual life coach first. And then through there, through my own book writing and my own book publishing and that whole experience, I really thought, man, I would love to help someone else share their story. And I would also really love to have someone have walked alongside of me and encouraged me and motivated me for my journey and told me, keep going, keep writing, you got this, keep doing it. Because when I was writing my book, it was the middle of the pandemic. Whoopsie. But it was one of those things where the next element of becoming that writing coach really came from I wanted to be for other people, other writers, other people who felt called or led to share and write their story and their message, what I felt like I didn't have when I was going through that process. And so through that whole thing kind of comes this idea of the spiritual growth writing coach. I use the credentials of being a certified writing coach, being a certified spiritual growth coach, along with having a psychology background, master's in psychology, which, funny side note, I actually never wanted to have clients. I never wanted to do any counseling, never wanted to do any clinical therapy. I always thought, I don't want to sit down and talk to people. I'd rather do the research side of it. But what I've learned is never say never, right? Because if you say you don't want to do something, then that's exactly what you end up doing. And so it was really through all of those things and that culmination of letting go of what I thought I would be doing or what I thought I should be doing, and just saying, yes, okay, this is where I am, and this is my current assignment.
That is so good and so powerful. Just what, like you sharing, like, be careful what you say you don't want, because the universe doesn't hear, I don't want that. It's like, oh, she wants that. Awesome. We're gonna bring her to that area. And like you said, like, never say never. And that's really a powerful message for women. And what I share with my clients too, like, where you are right now, just know that this is a journey that you get to enjoy. Like, enjoy the moment, be in the moment. Don't compare yourself to where someone else is, because that's not your journey. And where you are now doesn't mean it's going to look the same in, say, 5 years, 3 years, or even a year from now. Right. So just be open and go with it and take action, because action brings clarity. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And you were in a place where you were confused. You didn't know, you were going through this transformation. I love that your business is around the butterfly, because the butterfly is the symbol of transformation, and it's such a graceful, beautiful creature. And I think it's perfect, especially when you're helping women out there who are beautiful, graceful creatures. And many times we can get lost along the way. And I want to talk into that. So you were going through this when you were you were a wife, and did you have kids at the time?
I did not.
Okay, so a lot of the women may be moms like you. And I know for me, when I was a mom, all of a sudden I became this, like, that was the only thing I knew. I was a mom, and I'll be transparent. I'm divorced. And part of that was because I was a mom, and we fell into these roles, and we kind of forgot about, like, the taking care of us part, which is super, super important. And you seem to have all that balance in all the areas. So for women who might be like, I'm a mom now, and falling into that role and confused of what else is besides a mom, they forget that they're a woman too, because we kind of push that aside, right? We were people before we were moms. Like, we had lives, right? We had goals. So what would you say, what were the steps that you took to find that clarity and to be able to find your purpose and step into that?
Yeah, I love that question. I think it really revolves around this idea that our identity isn't necessarily the mom, and it isn't necessarily the wife. Our identity, first and foremost, and for me, it's definitely faith-based. It's who I am as a child of God and what that means to me. And then from there, you look at the different roles that we play. So the identity is really having that understanding of where we come from and who we are. And then from there, it stems into the roles that we play as a mom, as a wife. And so I kind of had to shift, and this is still a work in progress, to be honest with you. I had to shift from looking at, like, pursuing my passions and my goals as selfish, and really try to reframe my brain into thinking, like, this is the most selfless thing I can do. And I'll tell you why. Because once you are able to indulge in what you want to do, and not even indulge, but just say, yes, I'm going to focus on what fills my cup, what makes me happy, then that honestly makes you better for everyone else around you. You've heard the old thing saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. And I feel like that is so true. You have to be able to fill yourself up and do the things that inspire you and give you that meaning, that satisfaction, and that happiness that you need in order to be able to serve the other people around you. Another thing I'm big on is boundaries, and this idea of having those boundaries and protecting those boundaries. I always say that boundaries are, again, the most selfless thing you can do, especially when in terms of just taking care of yourself and allowing that time to know that it's hard. Honestly, it's hard to say, I'm going to step away and I'm going to do this for me, and not have that mom guilt creep in, especially since you guys know that my babies are little, right? 5, 4, and 1. But then I know that if I step away and I step out of that role and I refresh and I renew and I do what I need to do to fill myself back up, then I can come in and I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. I'm a better business owner. There's just a new sense of just refreshed creativity and refreshed excitement that comes out from that. So I would say number one is to really try to frame your brain that self-care is not selfish. And I really even don't even like the term self-care. I look at it more as soul care, right? Because it's
Mm.
bigger than yourself, but it's soul care. It's building yourself up so you can then pour into others. And that's really what I've done with writing. I am a avid journaler. I journal every single day. Doesn't matter. Sometimes different times of day, depending on the situation. But the journaling and the writing, I've really looked at not as a form of selfishness. Oh, this is a selfish hobby. I'm writing, but it really is this idea of this expression and this outlet and this thing that incidentally pours into me and fills me up so that I am ready and I can handle every single thing that life throws at me for that day.
I love that you said soul care because self care, and I talk about self care a lot on this podcast because I think it's super, super important piece of what entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, mompreneurs, whether you have kids or not. As a female, we are juggling a lot. Like we take a lot of responsibilities on. I think it's in our nature to do that because we're nurturers. We want to take care of a lot of things, and we're like ready to say yes to whenever people need us. So I love that you said soul care because self-care, I think for many people might feel selfish, and we don't want to feel selfish. It's something innate. We're like that word we've seen as, like, for me, if I think of selfishness, I'm like, oh, that's negative and I'm a bad person, if I'm being selfish. So I love that you put it into soul care and you call it that because I'm a big believer on verbiage, and just hearing that and saying that is much more relaxing, and it's like empowering that yes, I can do for me and I'm
Yes.
not being selfish. So I love how you reframed that and reworded it. You also talked about boundaries, which is another key point, and I think super important for women to create balance in their life. But boundaries again can, for some women, can be feel like, oh, I don't want to be aggressive. That doesn't feel comfortable. That's way out of my comfort zone. And for you, I'm sure you've stepped out of your comfort zone with your business many times, and it's scary, right? So what's a way that we can create boundaries? I know I'm sure it's baby steps, because especially if we're a yeser,
Yeah.
so and we're not good at saying no. What is something that a woman can do to start that process of creating boundaries to like step slowly inch out of that box?
Yes. So I think there's several things that we can do. For me, you're going to laugh at this. So I actually do a word of the year every year. And incidentally, my word of the year this year is rest. How have I been doing on resting? Honestly, I could be doing better, right? But this idea of resting and this idea of creating that boundaries really comes from having the notion of like you need to be able to take care of yourself so you can take care of other people. So there's two things I would say on that. I would say that if you are looking to take on another task or another responsibility, I would really sit down and evaluate, okay, if you're taking on something, what can you take off? Because you can only have so much on your plate at one time.
Mm.
And another thing I had a friend say in a message that I heard her say, which was just remarkable. And it's something that's so quick and catchy that I catch myself just reminding myself of is if it's not a heck yes, then it's a no. So if you're given an opportunity and if it's not a I'm all in, let's do this, then it's a no. And so I have really kind of measured these things that come up to me and these responsibilities based on how excited am I? Am I a heck yes? Am I I could, or should I do this? Or I'm an Enneagram too. So I'm a helper by nature. So this whole idea of being able to evaluate it that if I'm not all in, then it's not fair to me. It's not fair to the people who I'm saying yes to. And it's not fair to the other people who I am in charge of, right? The people that like my children and my family that are surrounding me. So I've really started to evaluate like, if it's not a heck yes, then it's a no. And it makes me feel less guilty to know that if I'm not all in, then it's not fair to them because that way it doesn't feel like I should be doing this and I'm placing that blame and that shame on myself. But it really is, I'm doing them a disservice if I say yes to something and I am not all in and I'm not fully committed.
That is so good, Stephanie. A heck yes. That
Uh-huh.
is so good and such a good and I've heard that, but I forgot about it. So
Yes.
that's such a great reminder. It's not like step into your intuition. That's another thing I heard when you said that. Like, really, how does your body feeling? How is your body reacting to this when you're given this opportunity? Is it an opportunity that you really want to take? Because every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. And many times it's our family, or it's, we're putting something else aside in order to say yes to something. So make sure it's a heck yes if you're going to do that, right?
Yes.
And I love that you said take something off. We're not here to pile something on. We all have 24 hours in the day, and we're not supposed to be filling 24 hours with stuff. Take something off so you can give yourself the space to be with, to do the things that really light you up in life. And you said something earlier, now that I'm saying light you up, you said, and I'm not going to phrase it right, but you said something, and it just reminded me when you shared it earlier that and I think it was when it was stepping into your purpose and really getting clear on what your purpose is and giving yourself that, empowering yourself to do that. What lights you up, really, like knowing what lights you up and being a yes to yourself to say yes to that, to really
Yes.
step into that, and not, and not when we were talking about moms and finding where they want to go, because you shared earlier in your story about your, being confused, where your confusion was and where you kind of were a little lost. And I just wanted to touch on that. I don't really have a question around that. It came up for me, and I wanted to make sure I shared that, because I think when it comes to stepping into your purpose and finding what your next step is, it's really being a yes to what's lighting me up. And like you said, what you just said too, it's like just following your intuition and going with that heck yes feeling, so
Yeah,
thank you so
absolutely.
much for that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us about what you have coming up, because I know you have something exciting coming up,
Yeah.
and I want to share it. So what's going on? What you have a program that you're starting?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, this is a great segue to my heck yes, right? So my heck yes is a writing course, a writing masterclass series that I'm putting on with a dear friend and fellow creative coach. We are launching a course, a 4-part series on writing, editing, publishing, and marketing. So since I am the writing coach, I'm tackling the first module and the second module. So the writing is really, listen, most of us are called to write or share our story. And I firmly believe that if we're an entrepreneur and if we're a mompreneur and if we are in any sort of realm of a nonprofit, that we are called to write and share our story. And so it's this idea of kind of normalizing that writing a book and becoming a published author is not this big, unreachable, unachievable thing, but it really is, with the right framework and with the right frame of mind, that you can become a published author. And if you feel that nudge or that call to write and share that message that is on your heart, then this course is the absolute next step, outlining what the writing process looks like, what the editing process looks like. I'm also an editor, so I will tell you there is more than one type of edit. So usually a piece of work, a draft, goes through several different editing phases. So I will walk through that as well as provide some self-editing tips. And then the next 2 modules cover the publishing and the marketing piece. So publishing kind of goes through the ins and outs of what it looks like to upload on Amazon, how some resources to help you format the book, and kind of getting in those nitty gritty things. And the second piece, then, or the last piece, is the marketing piece. So, what does it take to have a book launch? How do I promote this thing? So many people are like, I want to write the book, but I don't want to promote it. And it's taking it from that first step to the next step. And that's why the course is called How to Birth Your Book from Dream to Reality. So, just taking it from this, it would be nice to have a book in your mind, to a tangible book that you can hold in your hand. So that course is launching here on September 26th. The first meeting will be September 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Once you follow the page and click, and you will have all the information that you need, all the specific details. We're including workbook, we're including Q&A sessions, and this is really supposed to be not just a course or information that you are receiving, but information that you are receiving and then applying to your journey and your project. And so step by step, you can take that message and that story and move it from dream to reality.
Amazing. So when you listen to this, make sure you click on the link in the landing page. It is there for you to check it out, find out more information, reach out to Stephanie, and also join. Stephanie, you hear all the, or I hear all the time, the power of your messaging, the power of your story. And for those who may be like, oh, I want to do it, but it's super scary. I don't know how to do it. Maybe I don't have a story to share. Why is it so important for us to share our story and get it out there?
Yeah. Our story is not about us. Honestly, our story is not about us. It's about the people that our story can help. And I firmly believe that the need for us to share our story is greater than the need for us to stay guarded. There's always someone. The more you share your story, the more you're open to share your story, the more you hear people say, me too. I thought I was the only one. And I promise you, if you stay trapped in this box of no one's going to understand, no one's been through what I've been through, no, I don't even have anything to share, but I feel icky, or my story's not a big transformation story, it's just a little story. Someone else needs that story. Someone else needs to hear that story. I think I read somewhere that your story can be the key to just unlocking for someone else. So it really can become that catalyst of transformation for another person. So I always look at it as taking yourself out of the equation and realizing that sharing your story is so much bigger than you. It's just to help encourage them and help continuing that ripple effect to make changes for each generation and into eternity.
And that is so true. So, and I'll springboard off of that, because my business really was stalled because I was so scared of being seen and heard, and also being vulnerable. And sharing your story is vulnerability, and vulnerability to me seemed like a weakness and was super scary. And then I learned it's actually a superpower. And when you can step into that, things transform. You transform. You never know who your story is going to help, because I felt like, I'm not going to talk for everybody else, but I felt like, who's going to care about my story, right? But then once I started sharing it, and I shared it little by little, people were like, oh my gosh, that resonates with me. Thank you so much. And oh, now I have the courage to do this. And it just was shocking to me to have that feedback. And then it empowers you to share more, because again, like you said, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about us. It's about helping the other people that it's helped, so they're not feeling alone, because we all feel alone when we go through our journey and we're going through our stuff, right, Stephanie? And by sharing our message and sharing our story, it's allowing you to understand, to realize that there's other people going through it too. So not only are you helping others, but you're helping yourself. So please reach out to Stephanie and find out about this program and this course, because you're going to be giving to others, and by you serving, it's just going to transform your life also. And if you have a business, it will grow your business. You'll bring in more clients, and you'll bring in more revenue, and you'll be able to help your family and reach those goals that you want to help and want to reach. And you get to transform so many lives and change so many people in the process in a really positive way. I want to talk about something else too that you had mentioned, and because you are the epitome of boundaries. And I was like so impressed when I asked you, when we communicated about being you guesting on the S.H.E podcast and being a guest here, you reached out to me, and I think you scheduled, if I remember correctly, and then it just didn't fit with your children's schedule you reached out and were like, hey, this is my children's schedule. Can we move this? And I was like, yes, because, a lot of people are very stringent and when they do podcast interviews, and I know I cater to women and women entrepreneurs. So I want to be flexible, but you could have just kind of like been like, you know what, I'm just going to cancel and be afraid to ask. And you weren't. And many women are afraid to ask. They're afraid to share what's going on for them. So I just want to acknowledge that, because I think that's really an important lesson and teaching for many women out there who might be sitting back going like, I just get to like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's a really scary to say, oh, I can't make that time, or that doesn't fit for me, when it's somebody else's platform. And it's really empowering that you did that. So I just wanted to share that with the audience, that she's living what she's teaching and what she's sharing. She is like a rock star. So I have another question for you. What was your biggest challenge when you were starting your business? Because we have a lot of female entrepreneurs listening. So what were you going through? Because many of them, I'm sure, are going through some similar things, and it's nice to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of the biggest challenge was just, who am I? Right? Like, who am I to start this? Who am I to talk about this? And yeah, I had my own transformation journey and everything, but there was this idea of, there are so many other spiritual life coaches. There's so many other life coaches. There's so many other business coaches. There's so many other finance, like everything. And so it's this idea of, who am I to just be a small little fish in a big pond? And so what I had to kind of wrap my head around is this idea of not scarcity, not there's not enough room for me, there's not going to be any room for me here, or there's not going to be any clients for me to serve, but really this idea of abundance, right? So not thinking there's not enough for me, but there's more than enough. And I am invited to this table to share in the feast of whatever it is that I'm being called to do. So to share in the feast of serving the clients that I am given to share, and serving the clients that I have the opportunity and the privilege to share. So one of the biggest struggles is the idea of, who am I? What do I have to offer? There's so many other people here, but it really is this idea of, no one else has our story. And that goes back to the idea of sharing our story. No one else has our story. Yes, we might all have, similar themes or similar things that we have struggled through, but no one else has lived our story, and no one else has walked in our shoes. And the importance of having ourselves being able to share those nitty-gritty details of our story as transparent and as vulnerable, those are the things that propel us. Those are the things that start to catapult our business and start to catapult the connections that we make to clients, and increase our invisibility. The more we start to share those, no one's going to care about that, are really the more times that people hone in and they say, hey, I see you and I connect with you. So again, this idea of, it's not, well, if they start this, there's not going to be enough for me, but there's more than room for everyone who has a seat at the table.
Yes, that's such an important point. There, what is there, 7 billion people, 8 billion people in the world? There's plenty of people for you to serve. And really, what you sharing that reminded me of the blue ocean versus red ocean. Like, are we out there? You have a choice when you're on your entrepreneurship journey. Is you could either fight in that red ocean, which means you are fighting amongst all the other entrepreneurs, like the sharks, trying to get like the little pieces here and there. Or you can create your blue ocean, where you're the only one in a beautiful sea by yourself, standing out alone as the expert and the go-to person and the authority in your space. And the way you do that is by getting vulnerable and sharing your story and connecting, standing out from the crowd. So that is amazing. Thank you, Stephanie. So how do we get more Stephanie? If we want to reach out to you, how do we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I am available. I'm active on Instagram and Facebook, and the username for that is just Stephanie Miller Coach, just one word. And I also have a newsletter. So my newsletter on Substack is really focused on all things creativity, all things mompreneur, all things writing. And it's really this idea of, honestly, the culmination of looking at that self-care as soul care, and how that itself is just transformative in every single area of your life. So I'd love to have you be a subscriber for that newsletter. The recent post that I just did is talking about 5 reasons why you can and you should write that book. So it just kind of culminates of what we've alluded to today about, you have a message on your heart. Now here's the next step. So I'd love to have you just share along in that blog about all things mompreneur, all things writing, and all things just creativity.
Awesome. Well, reach out to Stephanie, reach out to her, DM her, go join her newsletter, and let her know that you heard her here on the S.H.E podcast. And go check out her course, because it launches August. We're in September. I'm in August. Yeah. September 26th. So yes. It will be launching very, very soon. So get more information, reach out to Stephanie, or actually just go to the landing page, read up on it, and join. And you can also find out all the links and all her information in the show notes of this podcast episode. One last question for you, Stephanie, before I let you go, because I know you're a busy woman with a baby at home. What's a fun fact that we can know about Stephanie, about you, besides what you shared from your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So a fun fact about me is, a couple of years ago, well, in 2020, I wrote and published that book. And then in 2021, I had this crazy lofty goal of completing a triathlon. So I trained for a sprint triathlon. So that's when you do swimming, biking, and running. I actually didn't share this part with you, but I actually trained right after we moved. So we had relocated across the country, and I started training. So I just jumped right in, and I competed in several sprint triathlons 2 summers ago now. And then, of course, as you know, I have a 1-year-old, so I haven't quite gotten that back up, but I am I don't want to say seasoned triathlete, but I am a experienced triathlete and have competed in several swimming, biking, and running races.
Wow, you are a rock star. Powerhouse. Stephanie is a powerhouse. So reach out to Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie, so much. Reach out to Stephanie, connect with her, go check out her course launching September 26th. You're gonna love it. And it's a great way for you to be guided by an expert and professional who's done it herself, and getting your message out and your story out and becoming a published author. So that's really, really exciting. Thank you, Stephanie, for everything you shared. I'm so grateful to have you here today. I want to, one more last, there's things that you said earlier that keep popping in my mind. Journaling. And I love that you said that, because I do gratitude. I write in a gratitude journal, and I don't do it every day. I try, but I give myself grace when I don't. You said like, it's a non-negotiable for you, and it may not happen the same day, the same time every day, but you make sure you get it in. What's a way that we can do that to be consistent? Why is journaling so important to you?
Yes. So one way to do it to be consistent is, it's not necessarily, I don't go to the page thinking, oh, I need to write something really witty, or I need to write something like very profound. It's just this idea of a free write and almost like a brain dump. So I try to do it as early in the morning as I can, right? When you're fresh, you are in the morning. So if you have, kids that maybe are a little more independent, you can kind of sit down with your morning cup of coffee and get that out. But really, it's this idea of being able to free your mind, free all of your mind of what you're worried about, what you're thinking about, all of your to-dos, everything on that paper, so you can be more creative. So you can show up more creatively, and you can show up more fully, be more present, and be more intentional in being a mom, being a wife, being a business owner. And so I really, again, I look at it as a form of journaling. It's not selfish. It's actually the best thing I can do to be the best I can for those around me. And so I love the idea of just taking all of the bleh in my head, getting it out on paper, and trying to do it early enough that I know that I'm going to be able to be more present and be more focused for my kids, my husband, and my clients as well.
Oh, so good. So good. So we unpacked a lot of things here today. So thank you, Stephanie, for all of your expertise and for sharing so much with us today. I'm so grateful to have you on. It's such a pleasure to get to know you. And you are the epitome. You are living the life of a true mompreneur, entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, wife, mother, all the things, and with an active lifestyle. You're also an athlete. So thank you for showing us what balance looks like, because it's really, a lot of us don't have it. A lot of women do not have it in their lives. And that's one thing I'm big on, getting that message out there and teaching it. So thank you for being a role model for that, for my audience. And thank you for your time today. I'm really grateful.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was a joy and a pleasure. And I would say, just those of you that are listening, just take that one next small step. And then that one next small step will just keep going and keep going. You don't have to look at the whole ladder, just that next ring on the ladder.
Oh, that's such a great visual. I've never heard it put like that before. Like, literally visualize your goal as a ladder, or your steps, and just one rung at a time. That's all you need. One rung at a time, and give yourself grace in the process. Set your boundaries.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us today also for the Be She podcast. Be seen, be heard, be empowered, and we'll see you on the next episode.